getting frustrated because you know exactly what value you can add to your patients. Your client comes with their dog and you give them all the explanations that they need to know about what you can do and how you can help them. But they just are not getting on board with the treatment plan that you're suggesting. If this is the case, then this is the training for you. Today, I'm going to teach you exactly what to say to your clients so that majority of them are on board with the treatment plans that you're suggesting. So guys, this is something that took me quite a long time to grasp, but I promise you, once you get it, you will notice that your clients will respond completely differently to your treatment suggestions. Now, our treatments and suggestions are often very new. It's a completely new and different opportunity for our clients. If you think about it, they've been to the vet has given x-rays and then has said, here's some anti-inflammatories, maybe some joint supplements, and maybe suggested a joint food. So now when we are coming in, we are making a whole lot of new suggestions, okay? And so we really need to sell them on this. And what we tend to do is we give them all the logical reasons and we try and convince them why they should be doing the treatment plans. Now, a Harvard professor called Gerald Zoltman, he studied and how people actually make decisions. And what he found is that 95% of purchasing decisions are made by the subconscious. So emotion is really what's driving our purchasing behaviors and also the decision making in general. So how does this change the way that we should be speaking to our clients? Well, when our clients are faced with this new opportunity, our treatments, two things have to happen before they make the decision to go with that new opportunity. First, they need an emotional connection and they need a logical connection. Now, logic doesn't sell, emotion does. This is something that we really got to get into our brains because we are continuously telling them about all our services, all the things, the machines that we've got, what we're going to do. And that's all about logic. And that's how we think. We think logically, okay? But we need to tap into that subconscious and get them into that emotional side and make that emotional connection, because people make decisions with emotions and then they justify their decisions with logic. I'm going to read that again. People make decisions with emotions and then justify their decisions with logic. A great example is, for example, a guy who wants to buy a Porsche. All right? The guy doesn't buy the Porsche because it's got a really great engine and all the specs of the actual Porsche. The guy buys the Porsche because of the way that it makes him feel when he's sitting in the Porsche. It's a status thing. He feels really awesome. He feels proud. He feels like everyone's looking up to him. Right? So that's the reason, that's the emotional reason that he wants the Porsche. But then he justifies it with logic. And he'll say, well, it's got this kind of engine, it's got these beautiful seats and this and that, and all the wonderful specs of the Porsche. But the reason is because the way that it makes him feel, okay? So when we come straight at our clients with logic and rehab babble, they switch off. We first need to get that emotional connection. We do this by telling the previous stories of our patients, how they started when they first saw us, and how that transformation changed that animal's life and the client's life. When I look back at my consulting, I had a story for most of the conditions I treated. I had one for hip dysplasia, one for conservative cruciate treatments, one for paralyzed dogs. And when I had my first consult, I always tell one story of a client that was similar to them. And if it's possible for that client, it's possible for them. I didn't have a marketing reason at the time. So when I told these stories, I just knew that it worked. And I very rarely had a client that would not say yes to what I suggested. And so this is why I'm teaching you guys this, because it really worked for me. So stories help to get that emotional connection. Once you've told the story, then you start talking about why and what you will be doing. Then you touch on the logic. So I'm going to give you guys an example now. So here is my hip dysplasia story. This is the story I used to tell for every single one of my hip dysplasia patients that used to come in for their first consult. So I tell them about a young Labrador that came to me after the client had heard me on the radio. So I just mentioned a little radio because it's a little bit of social proof, adding some credibility for myself. Her 6-month-old dog was on twice daily anti-inflammatories and its hind limbs were so weak she could not even stand on her own. We had to help her from a seated position to a standing position. And at 6 months of age, this was really sad. And the doggy was really an unhappy dog. The dog had been to a specialist and he had recommended bilateral total hip replacement or put the dog down. Okay. Now, right away, the clients are thinking, wow, this dog is much worse than my dog. Maybe there is hope that this might work with my dog. So she decided, the client, that she would do rehab until the dog was old enough to have the first hip replacement. So after 1 month, she was off all painkillers and anti-inflammatories, and she had gained 4 to 5 centimeters on muscles on both hind limbs. She had acupuncture and was doing underwater treadmill and a therapeutic home exercise program. She was suddenly now able to go to walks with the other dogs before she had to leave the dog at home. And now she was able to rise from a seated position without any help. Now, this, when you tell these kind of things, talking about the emotion, this elicits emotion in them because now they're happy for that client. They've put themselves in their shoes and thinking, wow, is this what's going to happen to my dog? I don't want that. I don't want my dog not to be able to stand up on its own. So the bottom line is that Sasha actually never went ahead with any of the operations. She is now 12 years old and she's not taking any painkillers and anti-inflammatories. This will really touch on those clients that don't want to be giving their dogs drugs. The owner continues her underwater treadmill every 2 weeks and acupuncture once a month, and she goes for 2-hour walks in the mountains still. And the owner is very diligent with her home exercise program. Now, once I've told the story, then I'll start to explain the problems in hip dysplasia and what the goals are, how the treatments will benefit the dog, like they benefited Sasha. So I will then go back into Sasha. So I'll talk about how we want to manage the pain and how we want to strengthen and why we want to strengthen. And then I go back and I tell them, after 1 month, we gain 4 to 5 centimeters of muscle. I'm going to be doing the same measurements on your dog. And so we'll take the measurements and always just touching back on that story so that she can actually have that idea and that transformation in her mind of what is this going to look like for her dog. Now, what I want you guys to do is I want you to think of all the popular conditions and think of a great story for each of those conditions. Think of the emotions that you felt and the client felt and tell that patient's story, sharing those feelings, okay? So next time you have a consult, you tell a story of a previous patient before you tell them why and what you're going to do. And let me know how it goes. Go be awesome, guys.